Good evening. I'm going to call our meeting to order and declare a quorum of, where is he? Of 6 trustees, although I only see 5? Okay, we now have 6 trustees. All right, would like to welcome you to this meeting of College Station Independent School District Board of Trustees. We were elected at large to represent the interest of our community and our state in educating our students. Our mission for our students in this district is success each life, each day, each hour. We adhere to all pertinent laws, policies, and procedures in posting agendas and conducting our meetings. The detailed agenda information was made available to us at least 72 hours in advance, and we have all come to this meeting informed and prepared. We've just completed a workshop meeting where we heard reports and discussed much of the information needed to make decisions in either this meeting or in upcoming meetings. This is a meeting of the 7 trustees in a public setting rather than a public meeting. As such, public comment is included on the agenda at a specific time and requires us to listen rather than take action so as to abide by the Open Meetings Act. We are pleased that you've taken your time this evening to join us. We are very proud of the school district, and we thank you for your interest in and support of our students. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. Board members, item C1, pledge and moment of silence. I'll ask Mr. Gear from Pecan Trail Intermediate and Ms. Mishler from Welborn Middle School come forward and introduce their respective students who are going to assist us tonight. Thank you.
I'm Kelly DeGear, the principal at Pecan Trail, and I am honored to introduce Ethan Sherman. He's a 6th grade student. Unfortunately, our 5th grade student, Jordan Brown, wasn't able to make it tonight, but both Ethan and Jordan are part of a new club at Pecan Trail called the Owl Pals. And what they do is they support students who are transitioning from virtual learning or who are new to our campus by providing an orientation for the students, introducing them to other peers that they may be eating lunch with, and those kind of things. So I'm going to let Ethan talk for a minute.
Hello, my name is Ethan Sherman, and I'm a 6th grader at Pecan Trail Intermediate. My favorite things about being an Owl Pal are helping others and being part of something important. At PT, I also enjoy being an office aide and hanging out with my friends and teachers. Thank you for having me tonight.
Good evening. My name is Julia Mishler, and I am the principal at Welborn Middle School. And it is my esteemed privilege to have my 2 scholars with me here this evening, and they are going to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Darius Roberts, and I am a 7th grader at Welborn Middle School. My house is Odyssia, the House of Compassion. My favorite thing about our house system is meeting new people and being able to talk to them. At Welborn Middle School, I'm also involved in football, basketball, and I run track, and thank you for having me tonight.
Hello, my name is Zoe Garner, and I'm an 8th grader at Welborn Middle School. I serve as the Speaker of the House, which means I'm the scholar representative of all our houses combined. My specific house is Inventa, the House of Integrity. My favorite thing about our house system is you can meet new people, and it's an instant community to be involved in, and you can, hold on. Also, it's really great because everybody has a specific goal that they can work on. Either when you're put into a house, it means that you are either really good at that quality, or you want to work on that quality, or just because you want to meet different people. At Welborn Middle School, I'm also involved in, I'm in art too, and I also have off-campus PE, which means I'm on gymnastics team, so that's really fun. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Please remain standing for the moment of silence. Thank you. You may remain seated.
You're too tall. He's too tall though.
Hey, Mike, find a space in between there. There we go. I like it. All right. Anybody else? Nope. All right. Thank you all so much.
Oh, how are we going to do recognition? Stay here? For recognitions, you want us?
Yeah,
There we go.
Should I go ahead and move us to the next agenda item, Mr. President?
I'm sorry, I thought that was you.
I will. C2, student recognitions. We haven't done these in a while. This is very exciting. Thank you. We were supposed to do this in February, but an ice storm interrupted things. So I'm very excited to see some of our faculty here as well as some of our students. We're going to recognize members from our high schools for all-state band, choir, and orchestra this evening, as well as their respective directors. So as Mr. Glenwinkle calls your name, I ask that you come forward. Ms. Horn will provide you with your certificate, and if you will, fist bump each of the respective board members. Very good.
I'm going to read it a little bit first before I start calling names. So.
Excellent.
All right, so a total of 10 musicians from A&M Consolidated High School and College Station High School were recently selected to perform with the Texas Music Educators Association, or TMEA, all-state band, choir, and orchestra. High school students selected to perform in the all-state concerts have competed through auditions to qualify for the state level. All-state is the highest honor a Texas music student can receive. This competitive process begins throughout the state in auditions hosted by 33 TMEA regions. Individual musicians perform selected music for a panel of judges who rank each instrument or voice part. The highest ranking musicians qualify to perform in TMEA All-State Music Group, and only 2.6% of musicians who initially audition become all-state musicians. So when I call your name, please come forward to accept a certificate from the CSISD Board of Trustees. First, we're going to start with our all-state band members. Anderson Kirk. Jack Montgomery. Noah Zhao. And College Station High School Band Director, Mr. John Seal. In choir, our all-staters include Lauren Moore. Silas Merrill. Elliot Lewis. The A&M Consolidated High School Choir Director, Miss Emily Ramos, is not with us this evening. She is out on maternity leave. But let's go ahead and give her a round of applause. Hopefully she's watching back home. And the College Station High School Choir Director is Miss Kirby Etheridge. And All-State Orchestra, we've got Sabrina Hu. Hannah Jeong. Jeremy No. Sophia Wu. And I do believe both of our orchestra directors are busy with UIL competitions as well. Is that correct? But let's give them both a round of applause from A&M Consolidated High School, Miss Jane McCormick, and from College Station High School, Mr. Jason Hooper. Mr. Martindale, that concludes our recognitions for the evening.
All right, well, that will take us to item C3. Just encourage everyone, hopefully before you leave, maybe you've already done this, but we'd like to recognize some really great artwork in the back provided by Pecan Trail Intermediate, Welborn Middle School, Creekview Elementary, and Spring Creek Elementary. Next on the agenda is item D, the consent agenda, which tonight includes item E3, G, H3, H4, J1, J2, J3, J4, J5, J6, J7. And that is all. Are there any items that anyone would like to have taken off? Okay, well then do we have a motion?
I move to approve consent agenda as presented.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, next item, E1, board directions and reports, announcements, superintendent reports and announcement. Are there any reports from any of our committee assignments?
We had the District Education Improvement Council meeting on February 10th. Glad to have my notes because it seems like 2 months ago. Mr. Martindale gave an update. We chose a new secretary, so we want to really thank Lauren Given for stepping up and accepting that. Ms. Perry talked about the teacher incentive allotment update. And then Dr. Trammell and Dr. Ramirez did a program report on the ESL bilingual program, which will then be used to create our district improvement plan. And then February 27th, Ms. Perry sent out 2 emails to the committee members to vote on and approve 2 waivers, which are in the consent agenda we just approved.
I attended the Personal Advisory Committee back in February, and we also had one in March. So we've had 2 since we met last. And I'll just say, first of all, it was my first time back in February to go to a personnel advisory committee meeting. So I think it's if you haven't been to one yet, it's a great group where every school is basically represented there, and they get a chance to discuss any kind of personnel issues within the district, and mostly hear from Mr. Martindale, explain things going on. He shares a lot of the same items that he shares with us here in the board meetings. Talked about the strategic design, the bond planning, COVID updates. It was last week, so there was discussion about masks and protocols. Also had a great update at this last one about the teacher incentive allotment, which we will get that as well today. And then the other discussion item was one of the things that committee manages each year, which is the employees of the year voting, and so that will be coming up soon. And we, of course, will all hear the results of those pretty soon. Did I cover that all right? Okay. And we did also, Jeff and I were both at teacher incentive allotment, but I would say, again, we're about to hear about that in detail, so really nothing from us.
Education Foundation, just last week, I believe it was, had the Hall of Fame banquet, and that honors, I think it's 60 plus, 62 students. There's over 60 students from all three of our high school campuses that are chosen, and those students then choose a teacher to honor as well. So that banquet was last week, and it was lovely, and it's always really cool to see that and heartwarming at the same time. Scholarships, Education Foundation scholarship application just closed earlier this week. And those will be awarded in a couple of months, and that reception will be, I think, in April or May. But I believe I probably shouldn't do numbers, but I think there's like $80,000 or something that's being.
Do it anyway.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it. I think it's over $80,000.
Yeah, just commit them to anything you want right now.
Over $80,000 is being given away in scholarships this year. Lots of scholarship opportunities this year. They're very exciting. Anything else I'm looking at you since you're also. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Martindale.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nugent. Superintendent update. These numbers are from earlier today as far as the number of active cases we have in the school district. We have 36 active cases, that's 8 staff and 28 students. We are moving in the right direction. Coming out of the holiday in January and February, those numbers were getting up into the 80 range on us, so we're absolutely trending in a much better place at this point in time. As far as instructional modes or settings, we have 88% of our students back on site at this point in time. So obviously then 12% are still receiving virtual instruction. As you all know, last week, educators were added to the priority list for vaccines. We've been working quite a bit with Jim Stewart, who's overseeing the Brazos hub, and our teachers have been given access to sign up and begin receiving vaccines through the Brazos hub, as well as a number of other different areas, CVS, HEB, those places. I will tell you that Ms. Perry and Dr. Dixon and myself had a call today with Baylor Scott and White. And they will be having 600 vaccines come available for school district employees. We're looking at scheduling and working out the logistics. We have a follow-up call with them tomorrow. We hope to distribute details to our district employees tomorrow afternoon. And what we'll be looking at doing is administering 300 of those vaccines Thursday afternoon. I believe the time was 3 to 6 p.m. So we're kind of doing it toward the end of the school day so folks are available. And we're also looking at next Monday, the first Monday of spring break, having an additional 300 available from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Again, we're working on logistics. Our initial plan is to do that here in this boardroom. We're very excited about that. Again, since educators were added last week, we've been working with several different entities, and as vaccines come available, we make our faculty and staff aware of that. So that has absolutely, the pace has picked up quickly on that. Strategic design, as Ms. Perry mentioned, in workshop, we kicked that off last week. We had focus groups, again, the end of Monday and through the course of Tuesday last week. We had a little over 60 folks involved in the focus groups, and we were over 200 between our two summits, the on-site as well as the virtual summit last week. As of earlier today, our surveys, we had around 1,200 completed. The surveys are still available. They'll be available to everyone, to all of our stakeholder groups. They're on our site, and that will be available through this Friday. It'll close late Friday evening. So we encourage folks, if they have not done that, to please complete the survey so we can receive that feedback. Bond committee, first meeting will be on March the 30th. That'll be an informational meeting, and we just approved the membership list for that. So we're looking forward to those conversations through the course of April and May. Celebrations. Ms. Nolan mentioned Hall of Fame, one of my absolute most favorite events. So thank you to Ms. Benden and all those folks that coordinate that. And it recognizes 6% of our graduating seniors from CSISD. And again, as Ms. Nolan mentioned, they recognize teachers that had an impact on that. So it's always a very touching evening. We have had 2 academy appointments in CSISD from Consolidated. Samantha Rose received appointment to West Point, and from CSHS, Brown Madar to U.S. Naval Academy. And those are wonderful things, and we're very proud of our students and their work in being appointed to the academies. Congratulations again to the Lady Tiger swim team, who placed 3rd at state. In addition to that, Caitlin Owens won 3 gold medals, one of which was the 400 freestyle relay with her teammates, but also the 50-yard and the 100 backstroke. It makes me tired just reading those. So congratulations to her. That's obviously an incredible showing, and to the collective swim team. And lastly, of course, we all know several weeks ago the weather that we all endured in the state of Texas. We were not immune to that here in CSISD. And I do want to mention and kudos to Mr. Halls in the crowd, but to our maintenance department. A lot going on with the weather, pipes free, all kinds of mechanical issues, travel issues, all those things, obviously, because we had to cancel school throughout the week. I will tell you that on Wednesday of that week, I was hearing from Mr. Hall, because they were out and they were checking our facilities. They're able to monitor that remotely and identify issues immediately. And our maintenance crew worked Thursday through late Saturday, double check things on Sunday. And because of their work, we were able to start school on Monday as usual. And there were lots of places who were unable to do that because of issues with facilities. And kudos to those folks for recognizing issues quickly and getting to them. I think just another example of the good people we have in our school district. So, Mr. Nugent, that concludes superintendent's update.
Hang on.
Thank
I
you.
have corrected numbers.
I'm sorry, you have what?
I have corrected numbers.
Oh, here we
I have the correct
go.
Numbers now. It's $120,000 in scholarships, and there are 95 scholarships to be given. I thought that was worth mentioning. Thank you.
I like you were under-promising.
Let's get it right, though.
Thank you, Ms. Nolan, and thank you, Mr. Martindale. That takes us to item E2, consider approval of a charter and committee membership for the 2021 strategic design process. Mr. Martindale?
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. Board members, again, at workshop, Ms. Perry gave us some details regarding the process. As per policy, the board can pull together ad hoc committees and charter that committee and approve the membership. She's presenting to you tonight the purpose of that committee, the charter, and the membership for the strategic design team. So, Ms. Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Martindale, Mr. Nugent, members of the board. In your packet and linked to the board agenda, you'll find the charter along with the committee members. We have been talking over the last several months about the need to engage in a strategic design process, and through a process of considering several vendors have engaged with Engage to Learn. Moving forward with that, we are asking your approval to commence forward with the charter and the committee membership, as those groups will begin to meet in late March through May and develop our strategic plan for College Station ISD.
Okay. If there are not any questions, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the charter and committee membership as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have our motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Takes us to item F, hearing of citizens. Do we have any public comment? Ms. Horn? Having none, we will move to item H1. Receiver report related to special services. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. This is our monthly report, program report provided to the board. This month, we have Ms. Lindsay Fuentes. She is our Executive Director for Special Services, and will provide us a report which includes special education, Section 504, and our dyslexia programs. So, Ms. Fuentes, it's glad to have you this evening.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to provide an update in special services within College Station ISD. Special services in College Station ISD encompasses all services and supports for students with disabilities, including Section 504, special education, and dyslexia. The first program I'm going to review with you tonight is Section 504. Please keep in mind that this is an unfunded mandate. Who is eligible for Section 504 is any person who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Examples of some major life activities include walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, or caring for oneself. Has a record of such an impairment, or is regarded as having such an impairment. The responsibilities under Section 504 include a free and appropriate public education, FAPE, as well as establishing eligibility through an evaluation, which is typically conducted through an initial 504 meeting. Consider those needs at least once annually. Provide necessary accommodations and services based upon the need resulting from the disability, as well as ensuring the protection of rights. Currently, in College Station ISD, we have 1,394 students identified under Section 504. Each campus designates a Campus 504 coordinator to help ensure our compliance requirements. Our largest disability condition in 504 is dyslexia. Dyslexia is a learning disability for students that struggle with learning to read, write, or spell. For identification and service models, we follow the Texas Dyslexia Handbook that was recently updated in 2018, and in Texas law allows us to provide services in a variety of methods. In general education only, through 504, or through special education. Campus 504 coordinators, or ARD committee members, make sure each student has an individualized accommodation plan, and Special Services Department provides annual training for dyslexia teachers. We currently have 16 teachers that support 764 students. So that's about an average of 48 students per teacher in the district. You can see this is our current dyslexia budget, which consists of local funds. The majority of the budget is allocated towards personnel, And we also have about $30,500 for supplies. So that is for our instructional materials as well as our curriculum, and $6,000 for professional development. Our largest program within special services is special education, which is protected under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. This is a federal law that ensures the provision of a free and appropriate public education to eligible students from birth to age 21. In College Station, we typically serve students from age 3 to 21. However, we work closely with early childhood intervention agencies for students that are identified at birth with either deaf of hard of hearing or a vision impairment. All children who are in need of special education and related services must be located, evaluated, and identified. In order to be eligible for special education, we must establish a disability condition. So that consists of conducting a full individual evaluation that is very comprehensive. Once that disability condition is established, we determine as an ARD committee member if there is a need for specially designed instruction. Oftentimes it's referred to as SDI, which is tailored to the unique needs of the student based on their disability. Those needs are described within the ARD document in an individualized education plan, an IEP. We must ensure that we provide a free and appropriate public education, FAPE, and we consider these needs through the ARD process at least once annually. Some students may require multiple ARD meetings, and we make sure that we comply with that. So here you can see our enrollment in special education in Snapshot since 2016. So these numbers, Snapshot is typically in October. So in 2016, we are at 1,116 special education students in CSISD. Currently, at Snapshot of this year, we're at 1,742. You can see not a significant growth from this year's Snapshot to last year, and that's contributed to the COVID. However, currently, as of March, we're probably a little higher as of today, we are at 1,900 students. So when you compare that to 2016, special education enrollment has grown 70% in College Station ISD, which is equivalent to a large 5A high school. In order to receive special education services, we established the disability, and there are 13 disability categories. Some students might have multiple disabilities, but this graph here shows you the primary disability. Our three largest classification is speech impairment, which is 30.8%, specific learning disability, which is 23.88%, and other health impairment, which is 15.15%. Other health impairment is a medical diagnosis. So we work collaboratively with physicians when we're conducting that evaluation. And our largest other health impairment in the district is ADHD. All students in special education are general education students first. So we provide supplemental aids and services as well as curriculum to ensure that we have an instructional continuum of supports, from the least restrictive environment to the more restrictive environment. Our least restrictive environment is in-class support, which consists of a special ed paraprofessional or a special education certified teacher going into the general education classroom and providing that support. Then we have our co-teach model, which is primarily at our intermediate to middle school, and that is 2 certified teachers, a special education teacher and a general education teacher, working collaboratively together from lesson planning to lesson delivery. Then we have our resource fundamental classes, and that is primary for students who are functioning 2 to 3 grade levels below, and they are accessing the general education curriculum on a modified level. And last, we have our specialized programs, which I'm going to talk about next. College Station ISD has a variety of specialized programs to meet the unique needs of all of our students. We have our CASTLE program, which is our communication, academics, social learning, which is a highly structured classroom and for students with significant communication and social learning needs. All of these programs are centralized, and CASTLE is available for students in grades pre-K through 12. We have our Early Childhood Special Education Program, formerly known as PPCD, which serves children ages 3 to 5 across a continuum of settings. Our Adaptive Behavior Programming is for students that have significant emotional, behavioral, and social learning needs, grades K through 12. Our Applied Programming is for students who have significant cognitive deficits or needs in grades 5 through 8. So that is at our intermediate and middle school levels. And then we have life skills, which is for our students who have significant cognitive and adaptive skill needs. So they might need some functioning, learning, and some other skills to help them be successful. And that is through grades K through 12. Our last two specialized programs are our 18+ programs, which are Project Search and Bridges. And you can see here our Project Search, we partner with Baylor Scott & White. We're super grateful for that. And it provides them intern-based work skills. So these students are assigned internships within the hospital, and they are working independently under a supervisor at the hospital. We also have a teacher that is at Baylor Scott & White that helps facilitate and help them through that process while they do that on-job training. A lot of them have job sites. It just depends on the skill or the need. Hospitality, housekeeping, pre-op. It really varies on the need and where they want to grow to secure a job after graduation. And then we have Bridges. Bridges is currently at our College View High School. These students are getting ready for independent living skills. It's a bridge to the future. That's where Bridges' name came from. And so you can see here from the picture, they're learning how to grocery shop. They learn how to ride transportation, public transportation. They attend job sites about 4 days a week with a lot of community places, restaurants, venues, as well as department stores. And so currently we average in both programs 10 to 12 students. And our Project Search employment rate is typically 80 to 85% once they graduate. So next you can see our special education budget. This consists of federal and local funding. So almost $17 million. Out of that, you can see over $16 million is within personnel. So you can contribute a lot of that to the growth. And so we have a little over $400,000 for contracted services. We use that for our special education software program, as well as contracted companies to ensure we maintain compliance for assessment. In supplies, we have about $193,000, and that covers our instructional materials as well as technology. And then our professional development that we allocate to each campus depending on how many special education students they have on that campus. So overall, about 88% of our special education budget is local funded. About 12% is within our IDA grant. And you also can see the state and vision funds that we receive. So what's next within special services? We are continuing to monitor and respond to the growth in our student population, constantly analyzing the staff to student ratio to ensure equity and address student needs. We're preparing for a TEA cyclical review in April of 2022, so next spring. TEA notified all districts in the state of Texas that they will receive an on-site or desk audit every 6 years. And so College Station ISD was chosen for next April. In preparation for that, we're currently completing internal audits And from those internal audits, depending on the patterns we find or non-compliance issues, we will then provide professional development to the district and making sure that's a priority. We're continuing to target behavior interventions and provide support. We have a committee of district personnel to identify interventions and strategies. Every month, I run a list of students that receive, special ed students that receive frequent infractions to look for patterns and trends so that I can give that awareness to campus administrators as we continue to monitor our out-of-school placement days with either ISS or OSS. We are also participating, this is a significant celebration, in an autism grant. We are part of a $1 million TEA grant with about 6 other districts. We applied and we were selected within Region 6 and 4. And that training provides additional training in assessment, communication, as well as behavior. And it focuses primarily on students ages 3 to 9. So recently, we received about 40 iPads to help our students who are nonverbal with communication, as well as assessment kits and some other supplies. We're continuing to monitoring our post-secondary outcomes with higher education, as well as graduation rates. We're above the state average in that area. And then our COVID-19 related needs. So, although due to COVID, we still have a requirement to meet our child fine obligation. And I'm extremely proud of our team because we were able to test students this past summer, as well as every Saturday. So last summer, we tested about 100 students because our assessments require some face-to-face for reliability purposes. And so that is how it also contributes to that growth, is because a lot of those evaluations from last spring we're still catching up from. Also providing compensatory services related to the COVID shutdown. Some of our students, either we have about 20% have regressed or just maintained the skills, so they didn't make the anticipated progress that we would have hoped for. So we're embedding those compensatory services within the school day or before or after school. And then continuing our community partnerships with Parenting on the Spectrum. We partner with Bryan ISD, and we're able to provide some one-to-one training with students and families that need additional support, as well as our Purposeful Life with the Center of Disabilities at A&M and other community agencies. And then individualized parent training. If families need additional support within the home setting, to generalize those skills in the school setting. So that is a brief update of special services in College Station ISD. And now I welcome questions or concerns.
Thank you for the update.
Yes.
We had Fine Arts present, so I'll ask a similar question that was asked to them. Are there any resources that you feel you need to meet the needs of the current program and the future of the program?
Currently, right now, just analyzing which every department's doing within the district, staffing, and looking at our curriculum needs. But I feel very supported by the board as well as cabinet throughout the years that I've been here, and continue getting that support. But yes, I'm in that process right now. And so staffing will be something that I definitely look at all the time. But right now, that takes usually about a month or 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I did my math right and I was following, which is a good chance that I did the wrong. So we have about 3,300 students?
In special education, we have 1,900 students.
1,900. And then I think I was adding, because I added like the 504
Yes.
into that as well. So with our 504 and our special education, we're at about 3,300 students.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing to me. I'm going to get a little sentimental here because this is public education. I'm going to get on a soapbox for a minute because this, to me, this is amazing that these kiddos, that these students are a priority, not just for our district, but for public education. So I just have to get a little bit emotional there because it's so very important that we serve every single one of our students. And it sounds to me that you guys are working very hard to make sure that this happens.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just add to that in my practice. It is amazing the number of parents that we deal with who specifically have moved to College Station and College Station ISD because of our special education programs. It's I guess in some ways it's a double-edged sword because you've got this incredible growth and you have to deal with that. But it does say something that you are doing things the right way. In regard to the Bridges program in particular, have y'all seen any problems with the young people getting employment related to COVID this year? And if so, is there anything that could be done about that to try to help?
Currently, no. We have about 6 or 7 job sites where our students are going out with the teacher as well as the paraprofessionals and, following those COVID protocols. But they're definitely on track to meet that employment, but we haven't found any obstacles in that area. We've really had a great turnout with the community. Thank you.
Also, thanks for all the hard work. Obviously, lots of different programs and needs, so many out there that you're addressing, and thanks so much for that. I have also heard, at least anecdotally, that of parents and families moving here just because of our programs, and the numbers probably seem to support that. I would ask for one piece of information, maybe this is from you, Mr. Martindale, is just that we do have so many programs. There's lots of acronyms, and I'm going to reference that one page that you have up there of a lot of the different programs. But could you share with us maybe that, along with where those programs are located on our campuses? Because I know lots of times you get asked about which programs are where, and I barely know the programs or where they're at. So.
And Mr. Martindale, I have a chart.
That's what she's ready for it. Thank you.
And this is why I love Lindsay.
Yeah, we have these things happening most of to some degree, it's at all of our campuses, right? So, yeah.
We'll get that information to the collective group, Smoke Adams.
Thank you. And thank you, and your team.
Thank you.
But before we close, Mr. Nugent, and you're all aware of this, but hats off to Lindsay. She has an incredible amount of responsibilities, as everyone does, but she has a tremendous amount of responsibilities, making sure that she's abiding by policy and code and, federal programming. There are so many logistical pieces to what she does. And she is an exceptional leader in her area, and she leads her team to do wonderful work for our students. And we're grateful to have Lindsay as a part of our school district. So I just wanted to say that and publicly thank her for all the work that she does for our school district.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I did have one question because, and I second what Mr. Martindale said, because unfortunately I have firsthand knowledge to what y'all's department goes through, and kudos to you and your team. Y'all work hours that, my God, kudos to you guys. But with the significant growth based off of that chart, because 16, 17, 18, and then 19, 20 just ballooned. I can only anticipate that we're probably going to continue to see the same growth, if not what 16 to 18 was. Yeah, COVID, 19, 20, whatever. But I can only assume that we're going to see some significant growth. With that, what challenges does that put us in besides the staffing? And it might just be the staffing, I don't know. But what challenges does that present for us going forward to make sure we can continue to service at the level we're doing?
That's a great question. I think, of course, staffing as well as just being able to support all the teachers and keeping up with the federal guidance and making sure that we're meeting all those compliance timelines and being able to find the time for that embedded professional development as well as the other responsibilities. But that's particularly probably with every department. I think too, within our specialized programs, I agree that we have a lot of families that move in from within the state or even out of the state, typically for our unique programs. And so just balancing that with location as well as the special ed population that are already on the campuses. But we've really done a great job in that area and continue to add programs. So continue just keeping a close eye on that because sometimes due to transfer and other transfers that come in and other factors, we might not know the exact projections. So just keeping that awareness and communicating with, keeping all the stakeholders involved and having that support. So I think those are probably the main challenges.
I'm sorry, one more question.
Of course,
Ms.
yeah.
Fuentes. But just looking at the explosive growth the last 5 years,
Yes.
70% or so, what have y'all pinpointed? I mean, obviously people are moving in for the programs. I've heard the same thing, but I mean, I'm having a hard time believing it's that many. I mean,
Yes.
are we better at identifying or?
So I think there's multiple contributing factors. Our increased awareness of child find. So within the last 4 or 5 years, the state of Texas has been under a corrective action plan with the federal government, the United States Department of Education, as far as looking at a cap of special education students within districts. We've never my experience here, we've always identified students and none of that was a factor. But I think because there's more awareness and every district in the state is experiencing the same thing. We're having constant professional development and seeing other statistics in other areas as well. So I think that's one contributing factor, as well as an increase in parent referrals. We've seen an increase this year as well, just due to COVID, especially at our secondary levels, which isn't typically common. So those two things, I think, are the main contributing factors, just with that child find. And of course, the transfers do add a little bit, probably not as a significant rate compared to the other two.
Thank you.
Most definitely.
Anyone else? Again, thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
What a great report. Thank you for your work. All right, that takes us to H2, consideration, discussion, and possible action of grant submission, budget, and eligibility criteria for birth to 5 Head Start program. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. And board members, we have Susan Heath, our Director of Elementary Education, is going to share some information with us tonight, ultimately seeking approval of submission of our Head Start grant. So, Ms. Heath.
Let's see if I can find this. There we go. All right. Mr. Martindale, Mr. Nugent, members of the board, tonight I am going to give a brief presentation on our Birth to 5 Head Start continuation grant. For your consideration and possible approval. I believe that you received kind of the full grant and documents for your review. The kind of purpose of the continuation grant is to update the program design, the service delivery model, as well as update budget and our program goals. Along with this, we always add in any kind of self-assessment and items for continuous improvement. So not a lot of changes with program design. We still have 221 Head Start slots and 70 early Head Start slots, which is our home-based model.
We continue to have a large waiting list of income eligible kids for Head Start. So we're always on the lookout for other grant opportunities to expand that program. This year, as we plan for 2021-22, our service delivery model will be on-site, in-person only. I don't think anybody here would be surprised to hear that virtual learning is not appropriate for 3 and 4-year-olds. It has been quite a challenge, and we won't have any problem filling the program with an in-person model. One of the pieces of our service delivery that we're going to tweak a little bit is in our eligibility criteria. Now, our eligibility criteria is our point system that weighs the families that are most in need. And so they're weighted by income, under 100% of poverty. They're weighted by family status, whether that be education, family dynamics, that kind of thing. And this year we discovered that the 5 points that we were giving families that fell in that 101 to 130 bracket of income were being outranked by families that were over income if it was a grandparent that was parenting. And Head Start prioritizes low-income families. And so by making that adjustment and giving the extra points to the 101 to 130 bracket, we'll be able to make sure that we're prioritizing the families with the most need. This year, we were very lucky that the Office of Head Start gave us both COLA funds and quality improvement funds. After surveying stakeholders and staff members and parents, the recurring themes that kept coming up as priorities was, one, addressing instructional assistant pay. The Office of Head Start requires additional education, a CDA or an associate's degree for our teaching assistants that right now in our compensation plan we're not addressing. We're not rewarding them based on the additional education. So, and we know, our staff are our biggest assets, and we want to make sure that we're addressing that. Two that come up all the time are kind of outdoor classroom materials. We really beefed up our outdoor learning this year. Outdoor this year was the safest place to be, and a lot of our classrooms just moved outside as much as humanly possible. And that's something that we want to continue. That's a lesson learned from COVID that we want to carry forward. We didn't get to have the field trips that are always a favorite for parents and staff and students, but we want to make sure that they're budgeted for next year. As you can imagine, reading about a giraffe is a whole lot different than getting to see a giraffe in person. The last one that we just added in this past year was increased home learning materials for families. We bought iPads, we increased hotspots for families that didn't have access, and that's something that has been a huge win. Even though we couldn't have families on campus, we still had 86% of our families participate in kind of a school readiness commitment. I'll read to my kid, I'll talk with my kid, I'll have healthy routines, those type of things. So those are things that we want to make sure that we can carry forward. Our program goals, kind of our overarching goals that we established last year with our baseline grant, program goal 1 was to increase attendance to, kids, if they're not at school, if they're not there on time, they're not going to learn. And so we wanted to address this by 3 areas. One was to increase the number of students that were being served on their home campus. And we kind of set a goal for ourselves to increase that by 5% each year. And this last year, with some really hard work with cabinet and all the people in this room, we were able to increase that from 56% last year to 75% of students on their home campus this year. And we want to keep moving in that direction. It's been a huge benefit to children and families. We also wanted to increase access to transportation. We reduced the number of students in need of transportation from 26% to 20%, and we have 74 students that live within the 2-mile radius, and because that, they're not eligible for transportation. The third way that we want to increase attendance to that 90% is through family commitments. And we really didn't get to implement this year. We didn't get to have those face-to-face parent orientations where we really sold the importance of that parent-school partnership. But we will be there with bells on this year. Here's our attendance numbers, and you can kind of see that, especially this year for Early Head Start, we've really struggled. With Early Head Start, that's a home-based model, and it not being safe to go into 10 to 12 families' homes each week, we transitioned that model to virtual visits or to visits at the Barbara Bush Parent Center. And as Mr. Hall will tell you, we had a pipe burst in the Barbara Bush Parent Center. And so there's no more virtual or in-person visits there. So that's been a real struggle that we hope by next year we'll be back in families' homes and our attendance will go back up. We can also tell you that our biggest attendance offenders, if you say, in Head Start were virtual students. That was the majority of the students that we had attendance issues with. Our second program goal is more of that assessment-based school readiness, having children academically ready for kindergarten. And I wish I had a clicker or a pointer, which I don't have, but if you remember the school board goals that we established on phonological awareness and math, we built those projections based on kind of our 18-19 datas in the 70s. But look at our beginning of year assessment score of 44.9. And the only way to account for that, because these are the early weeks, we just kind of want to know what kids are coming in already exposed to, already having a knowledge base of, really, really low. And we believe that that's a factor of COVID. That's a factor of shutdown with the community. There was no daycare, there was no grocery store visits, there was no parks, when parents are stuck at home and kids are not having that exposure. The good news is, by the middle of year data, we had increased significantly. And usually our middle of year data is not near as strong as our end of year data because we use kind of that middle of year marker to increase our individualization. As we strive to continue to improve, everything in our program we consider self-assessment, we always want to do better. And personnel is our most valuable asset, as I mentioned, and really addressing the educational requirements of assistance is a priority for us, as well as we're going to reallocate a position to support more in that expanding program of Head Start Pre-K, where we can do some more individualization, do classroom coverages, and do behavioral support. Attendance, we've talked about. I think moving back to on-site learning will address a lot of that, as well as adding in those family commitments early in the year. And on school readiness, we've already done our year's planning for professional development with Teachstone to really hone in on the large and small group instruction around phonological awareness. And then we will continue the plan that we had in place this year with monthly packets going home to families to support what's the learning that's happening in the classrooms. And so adding in some phonological awareness to that as well. Any questions or comments, concerns that I could answer?
Obviously, I've told you many times, I am a huge fan of Head Start, and I think it's really extremely critical to prepare our kids not only for elementary, but especially some of those early year metrics that sets them up for success through all the way through the school program. And I also keep asking, how could we get more money to have more kids in the program, reduce those waiting lists that we have? So, for instance, specifically with this grant, we have a specific amount of money that we're asking for.
Right.
What kind of is setting that amount of money? Is that something? Are we maxing out what we can ask for?
Yeah, good question. That is not, that's nothing that happens on the local level. That's, Office of Head Start. I did just got an email yesterday that with this new recovery whatever it's called, that is passing the Senate, that there's $1 billion in there for Head Start, for the Office of Head Start. Now, we don't know what percentage of that pie we would have access to, but I'm watching. Yeah.
Double this.
Yeah, we could.
But you're specifically saying the amount we're asking for is kind of, I mean, is it, or was it limited based on the size of our district, the size of our community?
We've
Is it
had
just-
Head Start for 50 years plus. I think it's as old as I am. So it's old. And I don't know at what intervals we get access to additional dollars. But that's, that's just Office of Head Start. We have kind of maximized, now that we have full day pre-K, we serve a lot of Head Start eligible kids in pre-K. And so we've been able to serve more by shifting those 4-year-olds into full day pre-K, which allowed us to serve more 3-year-olds.
So yes, thank you for that reminder. I appreciate that. But we still have a waiting list.
We do.
right?
We
Yeah.
still have a waiting list.
Hopefully we'll get to them at some point.
That's right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How big is the waiting list?
So if you are just considering families that are under 100% of poverty, which for a family of 4 is about 25,000, I think we have about 20. If you're considering families in that 101 to 130 that we really don't ever get to, we have 51 additional families in that spot. Yeah. So, and then, we don't even keep track of over income because we know we'll never get to serve them.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
It could grow.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it, Ms. Heath.
Thank you, Susan. I'd say the same thing, that I said to Lindsay earlier. These programs excel and do well due to the leadership of those particular programs. And Susan and Lindsay are both examples of that, and an example of the kind of people we have in our district. So thank you very much.
Now, we will need to take action.
You do need to take.
Okay, so we are looking for a motion. Mr. Ben? I thought
Unless somebody else wants to.
you're stepping up. No, we'll need a motion to approve submitting the grant request.
I'd move to approve the 2021 grant continuation submission as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay. All in favor of the motion presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you again.
Appreciate it.
That's going to take us down to item I1, receive a report on regarding the teacher incentive allotment system development. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent and board members. A part of House Bill 3 included the teacher incentive allotment. Ms. Hickman and Ms. Perry have been working with a committee of stakeholders for some time now to prepare our local system. She's going to share details with us here shortly, and ultimately, we will submit this to TEA. I believe it's due by April the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. So with additional details, Ms. Hickman and Ms. Perry.
All right, thank you. Thanks for allowing us to come here and give you a little bit more information about the teacher incentive allotment. Tonight, we're hoping that we can just outline for you the parameters associated with teacher incentive allotment, review the process that we have followed in order to develop our own designation system and the determinations that our committee has made, and to talk more about our next steps and our timeline for implementation. So first, as a reminder, Mr. Martindale just let you know that the teacher incentive allotment actually came out of House Bill 3, and we just added in here the purpose of TIA is to ensure that classroom teachers have access to a 6-figure salary by providing an allotment to districts, of which 90% has to be allocated to designated teachers. The other part that's important to note about this is that the program was created in order to prioritize funding for high need and rural campuses. So that's part of the goal, to increase teacher compensation with priority for high need and rural district campuses. So when we talk about additional compensation for teachers, what does that look like? So teachers can earn additional compensation through teacher incentive allotment if they earn a designation. So you're going to hear us talk a lot tonight about designations. There are two pathways to earn that. The first one is established by TEA, and it is National Board Certification. So we've included the website here if you're interested in more information about that. It is a program through which teachers can participate, learn more about their craft. Really, they submit videos of themselves providing instruction. It is, from our research, comparable to something a person may do in order to earn a master's degree. And a person with National Board Certification automatically receives a designation of recognized. So any teacher in the state of Texas who has that certification has a recognized designation. The other way that teachers can earn designations is through a district designation system. And so that's been the work of our committee, is to talk through the development of our district designation system. So teacher designations have three categories: recognized, exemplary, and master. And you can see on this slide that those different levels of designation actually have dollar amounts tied to them. So the allocation to the district is per designated teacher, and it is in the amounts listed here. So that's a pretty wide range from $3,000 to $32,000. Keep in mind that's the designation level for across the state. So anyone who is a recognized designated teacher in the state, the minimum they would earn is $3,000. The maximum that a master teacher would earn for that district is $32,000. So how do we get to our number in the middle of 3 to 32,000, right? It's a big span. So the funding factors include not only the designation level, but also the rural status of the campus where the teacher is working and the poverty level of that campus based on the census block. So those three factors together determine the allocation for each teacher designation. So the next obvious question is, what does that mean for us, right? So on the website that's listed here, TIA Texas, you can actually look up College Station ISD and all of our schools and see what the allocation is for each one of our designation levels once we have designations in place. It's really small. I don't expect you to be able to read it right now, but know that the smallest number on there is somewhere around 3,100 and the largest number is somewhere around 21,000. So how do we get to this designation system? Well, there are two players, I suppose. One of those is the district. So our role is to develop and implement a system, which is what we've been working on and will continue to work on. And then the state will approve that system based on validity and reliability. Those are words that you'll hear us say a lot as we talk about the teacher incentive allotment, because that is how our system is going to be approved, will be based on it being valid and reliable. The state approval process is actually a two-part process. We will submit an application to TEA, and they will review our plan for our system and decide whether or not we get to move forward in the process. If we do move forward in the process, the next piece is a data review, where we will actually send our student performance measure and teacher observation data to the folks over at Texas Tech University, who will analyze that data and determine whether or not it meets the criteria of being valid and reliable. So both of those things have to happen before we have a designation system in place. When it comes to a district designation system, there are two required components that every district has to have that is attempting to have a designation system approved. The first one is teacher observation. That has to be based on a T-test or locally developed rubric. We have T-tests. That's what we use for our teachers. And so that piece is pretty simple for us. But again, we will submit our data for that so that Texas Tech can make that determination about it being valid and reliable data. The second piece that is required is student performance data. And so we will determine those measures independently and submit those as part of our application to TEA. Again, you see those terms valid and reliable there as well. We also have the option of including additional factors in a designation system. That can include things like mentoring, student surveys. There's quite a lengthy list of other things that you can use in order to determine whether or not a teacher can receive a designation. Just a few other tidbits about the teacher incentive allotment. So only certified classroom teachers are eligible to earn designations. The legislation is really clear about that. Designations are not tied to specific grade levels or content areas. So I'm actually going to keep going here because once a teacher earns a designation, it's applied to their teaching certificate and stays there for 5 years. So even if they were to change grade levels, they would still maintain their designation over that 5-year period. We're told there's no cap on how many teachers may earn designations officially. However, TEA estimates that about 1/3 of teachers might be eligible for that designation. And then this last bullet is really important because the funding numbers that we just talked about, the amount of money that is paid to the district per designation, that $3,000 to $32,000, that's actually the allocation that is paid to the district. And then we have to spend at least 90% of those funds on teacher compensation for teachers employed at the campus where the designated teacher works. So I feel like that was a lot of words. So 90% has to go to teacher compensation, and it has to be allocated at least to the campus where the teacher is currently working. So if we had a teacher who earned a $3,000 allocation to the district, we would need to spend at least 90% of that on teacher compensation.
Stormy, if you'll go back, the 5-year designation, that stays with the teacher. So for example, if a teacher is designated in another district and they come to work here, that designation and those funds come with that teacher. So it's assigned to the teacher, not the district.
Yes. So some further clarification on that. Whenever the teacher moves, if the teacher were to move here to College Station ISD, the funding allocation would then be recalculated based on the campus they work at here, but their designation would remain recognized master exemplary. And we could potentially have teachers with designations moving into our district as early as next year. So we do have to have a plan for that if we have teachers moving in.
Quick question. So
Yeah.
if I'm reading this correct, 90% goes to the campus for teacher compensation. So it's not that specific teacher that has the designation. It's the campus, right?
That's a great question. As we go through the rest of the presentation, we're going to talk about that piece of how we allocate that funding. It was a decision that had to be made by the committee. We've talked a lot about how that should work. Do we want the full 90% to go to the designated teacher? Do we want to do some other type of system that divides that in a different way? We had some pretty detailed conversations about that, and also just in conjunction with part of this system is we want to make sure that our teachers have every opportunity to earn what they would be able to earn in any other district as well. We want to make sure we're providing compensation opportunity for our teachers too. So we'll talk more about that as well, about where we landed with that 90%. Any other questions before we move on?
Just look in your crystal ball. What are the chances the legislature changes this?
Okay, so great question.
Well, Mr. Van, as I said earlier when we were talking about budget, I said it depends.
Right, it depends. This is funded by House Bill 3. So if House Bill 3 funding is maintained, we would assume that TIA would be maintained along with it. How long that will be maintained through how many legislative sessions, your guess is as good as mine. Okay.
What I'm hearing, of course, this is not official, but just through the grapevine, is that that they're accounting for teacher incentive allotment in the continued funding of House Bill 3. That's the conversations that I believe are going on at this moment.
I'm probably jumping ahead in the presentation, but from the PAC meeting where we talked about the funds wouldn't actually be here until 2022, 2023.
Right.
And that was the first thing that kind of popped into my
So
mind.
we'll talk about that timeline. You're right.
Okay.
I will say that if you had asked me that question a year ago, I might have thought, oh, I don't know, like when this legislative session comes up, how that will land. But as Mr. Martindale said, current indications are if House Bill 3 continues to be funded, that this would be funded this session as well.
All right, as we continue to think about the beginning with the end in mind, let's talk a little bit more about our actual development process here in College Station ISD. Ms. Hickman talked a lot about the parameters and all of those constraints around TIA, but we also had a lot of flexibility. And in fact, we began this conversation over a year ago with the Board of Trustees. I know many of you were there at that time, and that seems like a lifetime ago because so much has happened since last February. And that was really our intent, was to start the process then and then come back after spring break and start sharing this information with our campus staff. Obviously, that along with many other plans were sidelined. However, we picked right back up in the fall and began going on what I like to affectionately call the CSISD Roadshow, where we had an opportunity to visit with all of our campus faculties across the district and share with them information about what TIA is and is not, and some of those constraints that we just spoke about. And more importantly, solicit members of our committee, because we needed to have a wide range of stakeholders, especially teachers, to help us in developing that plan. We met over a series of meetings 5 times between November and February, and along the way provided updates to both Success Team and DEIC and PAC so that we could continue to make sure we were getting the word out, that we were working on this really comprehensive process. So our focus with that committee, of course, was developing that designation system for CSISD. We know the other opportunity in terms of national board certification exists for any teacher who wants it, but we really had to focus in on what this system of designation would look like for our teachers. You can see here the committee membership was comprised of primarily teachers and then a wide range of central office and campus folks as well, because we wanted to make sure that we were really giving a voice to all of the different types of teachers and assignments across the district. So that committee was really important because they had to really understand those constraints and really everything that was just shared and so much more, and really actively participate, go back and talk to folks on their campus and engage them in conversation, get feedback, bring that back to the meeting, share input and feedback with that committee. And then we were charged with developing consensus around the recommendations for our local system. We had a number of goals that we would revisit each time we got together as a committee, and we knew that we had to really understand where we had to create flexibility versus the things that we just knew we had to do. And ultimately, we wanted to make sure that this system aligned with our goals as a district. This is really part of that larger recruitment and retention and human resource effort to develop and retain a high quality staff. And so we wanted to make sure it aligned. It didn't take us in a direction that we did not intend. We had to determine who would be eligible, what types of teaching assignments, and we talked about that a lot, especially in those last several meetings, both in short-term and long-term considerations. We needed to really spend some time determining what teacher observation measure, although that one was pretty quick with T-tests, but more importantly, student performance for the different teacher assignments. We had lots of good conversation around if and what types of additional or other measures that were optionals would be included in the program, and then how those things would be weighted in determining whether or not a teacher met the requirements for a designation. Last and not least, which we've already spoken about just a little bit, is how would we distribute those funds? So the first required component was teacher observation. This required very little conversation because we do already have T-tests in place. We know that we have, as Ms. Hickman mentioned, some work to do on making sure that we are really well calibrated and prepared for that submission that would occur after the next school year. In the area of student performance, there were 5 possibilities for student performance. We can't just say teacher made test. Like, these really have to be measures that align with what is allowable and that can be validated through statistical analysis. And so we spent a long time as a committee really reviewing what those different measures mean, what they are, what they're not, and talking about the kinds of things that we already have in place that may fall into these categories, as well as the kinds of things that we might have to develop in order to use student performance measures that would be approved under the system. So in thinking a little bit more about student performance, we developed a guiding question. What would you accept as evidence that a teacher is highly effective at improving student performance? And every time we started to talk about student performance and what measures we would use, this question would come back out, because it was so important for us to make sure that we were really being authentic and sticking to a measure that was going to be meaningful and not just something that would check the box and work in this system. Of course, we had to keep that idea of validity and reliability in mind across the different assignments and think about what we had and what we might need. We also talked about additional factors. We had some really great conversation around if and what we might want to include in those particular areas, things such as surveys and whether or not a teacher was providing professional development or mentoring other teachers. And ultimately, we settled on a number of determinations. So first of all, it was really important for our committee that all teachers have an opportunity to earn a designation. There was no argument about that whatsoever, that over time, that is where we really want to be. We examined some other systems and noticed a trend that most of them were very restricted in the grade levels and assignments that teachers could actually earn designations, and so that was a really important goal for us. We knew that T-tests would check the box, and we would continue to use that as our teacher evaluation system, and it would meet the requirements. But then we really, as I said, wanted to think about what do we have in place. The committee felt like STAR was not a measure that we felt would be the most appropriate choice. We are not a district that has placed a lot of emphasis on STAR. We know that it is a post-mortem assessment of how students have already done and doesn't provide the high quality data that we get from assessments like MAP. And then we have our circle assessments that Ms. Heath just spoke about for our early childhood. And so those were the two that we identified as existing measures of student performance. We ultimately decided that the additional factors, while it sounded nice, were a lot more complex than perhaps we were ready to tackle, especially with this first go at teacher incentive allotment. And so we, as a committee, determined we would not include additional factors at this time. And ultimately, while we want all of our teachers to have that opportunity, starting with a narrow scope in year one is necessary for us to do this really well. And of course, how would we distribute those funds? We had some very passionate conversation around this one, some very philosophical conversations, and honestly, very important conversations, because as I said, making sure this system stays in alignment with who we are and what we're about and what's important to us is critical. And when you start talking about money, that can get a little sideways pretty quick. Ultimately, as we explored all of the different systems that we could see had already been approved, systems of districts in our area, and gathered additional feedback from our committee, it was overwhelming that folks wanted 90% of those funds to go directly to that teacher who had earned the designation. So year one, our cohort looks like this. We would be using the measure of MAP as a pre and post test. So we would look at beginning and end of year data for all of the grade levels and subjects that we are currently administering MAP in. And so that would include grades K through 8, reading and math and science, as well as our early childhood teachers who are using circle assessments. Again, lots of conversation around weighting. funding and how we wanted to divvy that up, but ultimately the team coalesced around a 50-50 split between teacher observation and student performance. So what does this look like in terms of timeline? Well, we'll start left to right. We have been going through this process of developing our application over the past probably 6 months now as we gathered feedback and input and met as a committee, and are currently working on a very, very comprehensive application to the Texas Education Agency. As Mr. Martindale mentioned, that's due April 15th, and so we will be submitting that in a little over a month. We should know by August whether or not TEA has approved that initial phase, saying you've got the green light to go ahead and start collecting data. That does take a full year because it requires us to collect all of that information on both the teacher observation and student performance measures, and then we would submit that in the fall of 2022 for the validation process, where they look at all of the teachers that have been submitted and all of the students' performance attached to those teachers and determine, hey, this teacher has a very high level of performance in their observation measure. What does their student performance look like? Does it match up and make sense? Then we would know by February of 23 whether or not our data has been found to be valid and reliable and determined approval from Texas Tech. And then ultimately, if all goes well with not only the system development, but the data validation and the ongoing support from the Texas legislature, we would receive payments in 23-24. So where do we go from here? As I mentioned, we are in the midst of completing that application, and we're going, beginning with this presentation tonight, be doing a lot of communication. We spoke to our Personnel Advisory Committee, or PAC, last week. We will be speaking to DEIC this week. We'll be rolling out a website for our teachers with this information and sharing that via our principals and getting the word out. And that's important because we will actually receive a survey for all of our teachers to complete to establish whether or not our teachers buy into the system that we have developed. We'll be working on that T-test calibration with our evaluators, and then we are already having meetings about additional subjects and grades, adding fine arts, CTE, and PE and athletics in subsequent cohort years. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
That was a huge task. And I will be honest with all of you, whenever I first heard about this, honestly, I thought it was like an implosion waiting to happen. I think I'm using the right words. I was very worried about how this would end up and how you guys would work this out and have these I thought they were potentially very, very difficult conversations. But it sounds to me like because I've not heard any complaints at all about any of this, but so it sounds to me like you guys did have some very, not difficult, you used a really good word, in-depth.
Crucial conversations.
You did. It sounds to me like you guys had some very crucial conversations and talked about some issues that were tough. So thank you, you two, for being on that committee, and thank you, Molly, for heading that one up. I'm just saying a lot of words to say that I think this was incredibly difficult, and I like the plan presented. I did have a question. I think you answered it just there at the very end, because it didn't seem like all the teachers were eligible, but you said that additional cohorts later on.
That's right. And in fact, we have been engaging with a consultant who specializes in teacher compensation in this way and has many, many years of experience. And she was highly complimentary of where our committee landed, because they're finding that districts who try to include areas that don't currently have evaluations in place are not getting their systems approved.
Okay. Okay. So the first step is to get approved. Come up with a plan, get approved, and then you can add to that.
Exactly.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. I don't think I have any questions.
Molly, the survey from Texas Tech, and that is collective buy-in from the teachers.
Correct.
Now, if I recall correctly, you can move through the process with approval, and the results of the survey can, in essence, allow it to continue forward or in the process. Is that correct, based on the teacher feedback and buy-in in the survey distributed by Texas Tech? Is that correct?
That is our understanding. And so that was why it was so critical up front that we had gone and shared this information with all of our faculties so they would know what we were doing and why, and that we had a representation from all of our campuses so that those folks were charged with going back and providing ongoing feedback and opportunities for input into the system. And so I think between that and our communication plan that we've got coming up here after spring break, that we should be positioned well for our teachers to have a good understanding of the system that we're developing and why.
Yeah, I think that why, communicating that why is going to be incredibly important in the understanding of how this works.
I would agree. This evokes a lot of philosophical conversations, and certainly, you know, we talked a lot about the idea of compensating our very best teachers and giving them that opportunity that they would receive in many other districts around the state. But at the same time, understanding that the teaching is a bit more of an art than a science, and there are a lot of factors related to the input that are indicative of the output that are not as simple as what it looks like when you put that down on a page with a 50-50 weighting of teacher observation and student performance.
Right, right. Seems like you guys thought of everything.
A few follow-up. You want to go ahead?
I was just going to say, sometimes we walked in thinking one thing and left an hour and a half later thinking something else. I mean, it opened my eyes to, I mean, having been around education as long as I have, I mean, it just kind of opened your eyes to things that, I guess, you know, bringing the cream to the top. I mean, that's what you want to do, and our district exemplifies that now. But also including every single educator in our district, because we're all different in every way, and we all specialize in certain things, and so it was about not excluding anyone and allowing everybody the opportunity. So, you know, each meeting just kind of coming in. I mean, I sat with the CTE crew every single time, kind of by choice. I mean, I was assigned to them, and then when we could pick our own group, I was like, I'm not leaving. I want to know more about this. So, and just listening to them talk and about just their entities was outside the box of just the normal general ed teacher. So it's going to get interesting, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It should be an asset for us as a district.
Yeah, to follow up on some of those thoughts. I mean, first of all, kudos to both of you for managing these committees, and it really was a fabulous experience. And I was impressed every time with you guys managing, but also, you know, all our educators in the room and the discussions that we had. I also learned so much. I mean, when I originally saw this program, I mean, the goals of it are really wonderful. We want to recognize and reward the teachers that you know, excel and do excellent work, you know, both across the state and, you know, and certainly in our own district. And so, I mean, those are lofty goals, but it's not a simple thing to accomplish, not at all. I mean, even you've boiled it down fairly simple here, but there's a lot behind it. I mean, and the other piece of it you mentioned is that it's not just the best teachers. There's going to be the reward part based on where those teachers are teaching, and that even makes it more complicated too. You know, go to a more rural district and possibly make more money. So we have reasons why our teachers stay here, and we got to. I feel confident, especially the teachers in those rooms really helped share that too. They want to teach here, and you know, so we need to recognize and retain them through the program. One other thought though, that this is going to rely heavily on the two pieces: the T-test evaluation piece, which is something we have in place, and most teachers feel pretty good about that, I heard. But and then the other piece of it is MAP. And MAP, we've talked a lot about the validity and reliability of that data. That's going to be a big piece of how we decide who gets these recognitions. And I think we'd admit, we know we had some reliability issues with MAP testing this year. So I guess I just say it's great that we've had 2 years of MAP testing under our belt, and I think it seems like we've learned a lot about it. But I know we talked about it in the committee, and you two talked about how making sure we even continue to improve our administration of MAP, keeping it reliable, and so those, you know, we feel confident in that data that we're using, and that also we continue to educate our teachers on how to continue to use that data and get more out of that. So I was really excited about those discussions and what we can continue to gain from that information. You know, just continue to grow the whole system. It's just one piece of it, but it's going to be a key piece of this allotment. So thank you guys for all your time that you put into it.
No other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Hickman, Ms. Perry. All right, so another report. Looks like it's taking us to K1. Receive a report on safety and security. Mr. Martindale, are you going to bring up the great Mr. Hall?
There it is. Thank you, Mr. Nugent. We are circling back to our February agenda here.
Double stuffed meeting tonight.
Fuentes did our program report that was originally scheduled for March. Mr. Hall was slated for February before we canceled. So Mr. Hall, our Executive Director of Facilities, will provide us a second program report for the evening on safety and security. Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Martindale, Mr. Nugent, members of the board. I'm bringing a safety and security presentation to you this evening that was originally scheduled for February, but as we know, we got close to that meeting and we all experienced Snowmageddon for a few days there. And I just wanted to make a comment on the front side of this presentation that I think Mr. Martindale made a really outstanding safety decision, since we're talking safety here, to not tempt fate, let us stay home that night, stay off of those icy roads. So it's been a long night tonight, a lot of presentations, but in my opinion, it was a great call. So thank you, Mr. Martindale, for that. So I'm going to jump right into my safety and security presentation here. I will have a slide at the end for questions and comments, but if y'all need to ask me something in the middle of the process, please feel free to interrupt me. So overall, our safety and security presentation here, I'm going to be covering major goals and activities of our entire program district-wide. Brief description of the program to include program scope, budget and staffing. I'll be covering some performance data issues, and finally closing up with some program challenges and needs. As some of you have served on the school safety committee with me, know we could talk about this stuff for hours and hours, but I won't make you suffer like that. I'll try to process this through quickly and at least hit the high points for you. So safety and security, really what we're looking at for the school business is it's really broken down into two primary categories. One being general safety and security, which is our everyday processes to ensure all is safe, secure, and healthy in our school environments. That's kind of the normal day-to-day regular stuff. And then you get into the emergency operations. That's the stuff that gets a little more press, a little more attention from people, and that's being prepared for the unexpected emergency situations that threaten our health and well-being. So we're going to kind of cover both of these big categories and then just kind of clean it up at the end with some more information. So for general safety and security, our major goal is to create and maintain a safe, secure, and healthy environment for our schools and facilities. Some of the program components we utilize to make this is not an all-inclusive list, but some of the high points. We do utilize a hall pass system for control of visitor registration and knowing who is in our buildings. That's primarily a sexual predator database, so that we run everyone's picture IDs through there to see if we have anyone that has a hit on that. Of course, we don't allow them to access our buildings. We have public address and camera systems that are upgraded frequently, thanks to Mr. Hutchison. Want to make sure that we can communicate with each other and with emergency responders very well as tie into our camera systems. That we're always looking for blind spots to put a few more cameras and improve our coverage of our schools. We also utilize what's known as a P3 campus system for anonymous tips. What this really does is taps into our greatest resource of knowledge possibly in the whole school district, and that's our students out there. They know everything. They know everything that's going on, and so this has been a great system for allowing them to provide anonymous tips. It's allowed us to pick up on several issues over the years. And then finally, we also utilize security vestibule and visitor management processes, once again, to make sure people who are coming to our campuses are properly checked out, properly vetted, have a visitor badge, and the rest of the campus staff and students know that they're legitimate and have been checked out and safe. The program scope for our general safety and security is really, it's hard to define it because you can't narrow it down. It's so vast. It's really district-wide. And I like to say every activity in every location is processed through the filter of safety and security. If whether you're doing a little program outside or really anything, having grandparents in for a grandparents' day, everything is considered through that filter of safety and security. We try to keep that. We try to keep very aware of that as we process virtually everything. One of our really valuable resources has been our school resource deputy program with the Brazos County Sheriff's Office. So the acronym SRD stands for School Resource Deputy, and we have one each at each of our 3 high schools and our middle schools, and you can see the list there. But in addition to those 6 that we have covered for an individual assignment, we also have one school resource deputy sergeant to supervise all of them. That way, if one of them are out for training or something like that, we've always got all of our campuses covered, or try to. Other things that we utilize the Brazos County Sheriffs for include helping us out with procedures for interviewing, searches and arrests when we have to take a closer look at some students and what they've been processing in some of our schools. I know Chrissy Hester has been deeply involved with that process. As so many processes, she's kind of taken the lead for us on some of that. And so kudos to you, Chrissy, for helping us fine-tune all of that over the years. Another thing that the Brazos County Sheriff's Office helps us out with, they actually brought the Campus P3 app to us and said, hey, you guys should consider using this. And we looked into it. Plugged it into our program, and it's really worked wonders. I know some principals out here would probably give me the nod of agreement that yeah, we've picked up on some interesting information floating around out there, and we're able to stop issues before they got any bigger. We also have a backdoor access for our Brazos County Sheriff's Office which gives them access to our camera system in all of our campuses for real-time emergency monitoring capability. As you would imagine, our attorneys had a good time with this, talking this all over, but once we kind of worked out exactly how that was going to work out, of course, the Brazos County Sheriff's Office can't just pull it up and monitor hallways and stuff like that. They'd never do that. But in a legitimate, real emergency, such as an active shooter event or something, it's good to know that they could pull that right up, not only see it themselves, but pipe it right back to law enforcement vehicles out there in real time. So it gives us a real advantage as far as a tool to process for such scenarios. And then finally, the Brazos County Sheriff's Office, they help us out with emergency radio licensing through the Brazos Valley-wide area communications system. That's so we can have good communications not only with each other here within the school district, but also with emergency responders out there as well. So another pretty valuable tool that we use. So now we're going to shift into the second category, being the emergency operations piece of our program. Major goal of that being to be prepared for emergency situations and know what to do when they happen. And that's kind of a broad, encompassing statement. It really covers just about anything you can dream up, and a lot of things you can't dream up. But it's quite a challenge, and we've had to do a lot of work to get on top of this. We've had major impact of recent legislation has been Senate Bill 11, passed in the fall of 2019, which was kind of a game changer in the school safety world, really cranked up some requirements for us. We required adjustments to all of our school safety programs, added several things to us, such as a school safety committee, meets three times a year. Added a threat assessment team per campus, which, by the way, Chrissy Hester, no big surprise, right in the big middle of that one, too. Chrissy's kind of taking the lead with us for getting all of those assembled. And really, the threat assessment team is to keep an eye on any staff or students who may be looking like they're struggling a little bit, might start getting into a dangerous mindset or something. So it's been a great addition to our program. I've added a very detailed reunification process in the off chance that we did have some catastrophic event at one of our campuses. In general terms, we would ship all of our kids out to the transportation center. We have a very controlled environment out there where our parents could then go out there and one by one pick up their kids, and we could track everyone very carefully. So another very important. Added a few other unfunded mandates as well, but I don't want to talk about that for 30 minutes. We do have a few other things that we would chase, but it's been significant, the impact of Senate Bill 11. One of the major activities for emergency operations as well has been the development and implementation of a multi-hazard emergency operations plan. We call it the MEOP. We used to call it the EOP. It used to be the big red binder that everybody talked about. After Senate Bill 11, we added so many things. We've changed it to the big yellow binder. So, but that's in the main office of each campus. It is customized to that campus and facility. So in that book, each campus principal or staff, they could flip that open and know where the water shut-off valve is, your electrical, or the gas shut-off valve, that sort of thing, so that they could respond immediately in that precious 5 or 10 minutes while we're scrambling to get there to back them up. Of course, it includes a broad range of potential emergency situations and how to respond accordingly. Covers kind of the whole gamut from inclement weather, natural disasters, if we have a tornado coming down on top of us. Of course, a whole annex in the binder for active shooter scenarios and how to process that. All sorts of medical situations, and our nurses are all tuned into this, of course, and had some input in this development as well. And even just all kinds of information repeated over in the book about emergency notifications with contact information. So if anything ugly happens, everyone should have quick access to not only my telephone number, but Mr. Martindale's, Mr. Glenwinkle's. They can get any one of the three of us. We start contacting with each other, and everyone knows really, really quickly. Another special little treat that was provided for us in the fall of 2020 was a massive change in our drill requirements. Texas School Safety Center, working with TEA, they adjusted that really after we had even started the school year. So we had to make a big adjustment on the fly with all of our campuses, had to get some information out for them now. So our new adjustments have now been processed. They're all in effect. We have one fire evacuation per month, is typical of what we've had over the years. We've adjusted down to one lockdown per semester. We used to have 2 per semester. The reason, and that was just a College Station ISD add for the second one. Legally required, we're supposed to have the 1 per semester. We had to take out the second one because they added on the third bullet there, 1 lockout, 1 shelter for severe weather, 1 shelter for hazardous materials, and 1 general evacuation per year. So they rolled in a couple of extra drills for us that we now have as part of our protocol, and we're processing all of those right now. So, in fact, I had several drills just this morning. So, in addition to that, our program scope continues that we have safety inspections each year for every campus. We go through and check out our fire alarm systems, our fire sprinkler systems, every single fire extinguisher in the whole district, get those checked out, re-tagged, make sure they're all current. We have our College Station Fire Department comes in also during the summer to check out our fire egress and general safety, and check us when we're getting a little too exuberant on our paper, on ceilings and walls and all of our decoration and stuff. They're always telling us when we get a little too crazy with that and dial us in. And occasionally we even have insurance company inspections as well. They typically come to look at the fire sprinkler stuff and give us some feedback on that. Our budget in a typical year this year would be for our SRD program. We carry a little over $720,000 for all of the salaries for our 7 SRDs, as well as their vehicles and fuel and a lot of uniforms and stuff like that that we process with the Brazos County Sheriff's Office. We have our hall pass registration that we use for all of our campuses. That's a registration fee of $5,600 a year. In my department in facilities, we have $20,000 per year to pick up certain physical components that we need to pick up during the course of the year, whether that's bollards or extra lock sets, or sometimes we use them on an additional camera or two, help out Mr. Hutchison with that. We did have this past year a one-time grant funds from the state for technology, which helped us tremendously this past year with for $219,000, and basically we used the whole thing for cameras and radios, and it really upped our game. Some of our old campuses had the old walkie-talkies that you use in your deer stand, and talking back to the base camp and stuff, and they were woefully inadequate. Technology folks kind of helped us steer through that process and get some really high quality radios for everybody. So we're back on top of the game as far as that goes. So, and with regards to staffing for safety and security, just wanted to put in there that really everyone in the school district, all staff members are responsible for participating in safety security. Some of us more than others, but no less important. Every staff member out there has a focus and a dedication to safety and security. So touching base just a little bit on our performance data for this past year. As you may recall, we had our 2020 safety and security audit just at the beginning of the fall semester. That was one of those COVID-19 delays that we were originally scheduled for back in the spring. Bumped it out to the very beginning of the fall semester. I can't talk about specific results in open forum like that, but I can say generally speaking, the results were very positive. Our staff was seen to be well prepared. Our drills were being performed and documented correctly at that time until they changed it just a few weeks later. So I guess we'll see how the next one goes. And our visitor management was very effective too. They really had some good comments for how our staff, our teachers would challenge people who came into the school building without their visitor tags, which is of course exactly what we're looking for. Yeah. Challenge them and walk them back to the front office for proper check-in. I would like to add a little bit for the performance data this year we're in right now. For 2021, we're going to have another safety and security audit for about 1/3 of the district, scheduled for, I'm saying later this year. Really, it's going to be later this spring semester. So within a couple of months, we'll be picking up another round for about 1/3 of them. If you'll recall from previous presentations, this is all required once every 3 years. But in a little more focused effort on the part of the school district, we decided to do 1/3 of them each year. That way we keep it on fresh on everyone's mind throughout the course of the whole 3 years, and not just scramble to pick it up at the last minute. So for all of them, so which has worked out really well, I think. So finally, we're down to program challenges and needs. Really, one of the biggest challenges always for safety is balancing safety and security with openness and warmth for our school campuses. We want it to function like a minimum security prison, but we don't want it to feel like that when you walk up. We want it to feel open and warm and inviting. So there's just kind of a trick to walking the tightrope for that, but I feel like we're doing a pretty good job with that, for our visitors. So always a challenge, though. Another thing is keeping up with rapidly changing technology. As soon as you get new radios and cameras installed and feeling pretty good about it, of course, the next round, just like everything in the technology world, they've got newer and better stuff. So once again, Mr. Hutchison keeps us tuned in to the latest and greatest, and we try to keep up the best we can afford, depending on the year. And then finally, we're going to have a review of supplemental equipment or facility enhancements, along with our funding sources coming up that we plan on addressing with the 2021 Bond Planning Committee. As y'all may recall, we did have a few physical components listed off in that safety audit. That funding always being a challenge, we're feeling like the 2021 bond planning process might be a good place to pick up some of those. So we're definitely got that on the agenda to discuss for those. So those are all of the program challenges and needs I've got listed. I'll go ahead and click over to the question and comment section there and field whatever questions you may have for me.
Okay, I'll start again. I don't have any questions that I can think of right now, but I do have comments. One, I'm so glad that you were committed and take this job so very seriously. Mr. Hall, it makes me feel better knowing all the effort and all the work that you put into this and how serious you take this job. Every time I hear a report in closed session or here, I'm amazed at all the work that goes into this, and thank you for that. Two, I want to give a shout out when you said balancing between a minimum security facility and warmth of the school. I want to give a little shout out to those it's, in my experience, it's all ladies in those front offices that are taking care of that, doing their jobs every day, making sure that when people come in, they do feel warm and welcome, but they are very serious about their jobs and don't let anybody pass that shouldn't be passed. So I just wanted to say a little thank you to them publicly. And also, I don't think I realized, and I know you've told us before probably, I don't think I realized just how real-time connected we are with our local police department. That, I like that. And technology, is amazing. And the fact that we can have that real-time, that they can follow us real-time if need be, is also very comforting. So I'm glad that we have all of that in place as well, so that we have that backup if and when we ever need it. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall, I'll just echo Ms. Nolan's comments about you and how you are taking care of things. We really appreciate it. I do have two questions, though, and the second one kind of builds off the first one. But in regard to the SRDs, how do we compare to other districts our size, for instance, with the number of resource deputies that we have at the various schools and so forth? I mean, is that something where we need to potentially improve upon, or are we pretty comparable to what other districts have? Or
well, that's a great question. I'd say it kind of depends on the school district. Some of them actually have their own police force. A lot of school districts opt to go that direction, which of course we did not over the years. Some of the bigger school districts, a little bit larger than College Station ISD, tend to go with two SRDs or SROs, as may be the case, per campus. This is something that we've considered over the years and may consider it again in the future. But I'd say generally speaking, we compare pretty well with other districts. We cover a lot of things that some people don't, and you can dig in there and find some other things that maybe that they pick up that we don't. But all in all, I'd say we compare pretty favorably.
Okay. And that brings me to my last question, and I by no means have a solution to it, or maybe it's not even a problem, but the having one SRD for College View, which has 100 and something students, as opposed to the comprehensive high schools with 2,000. I mean, has there been any discussion about trying to equalize that per the number of students at the school, or is that even possible?
I'd say I'm sure it's possible. Wow, what a loaded question! You set me up for that.
Well, like I said, I don't know the answer.
I'm just kidding you. Of course, we talk about that frequently, and the numbers of students is a great driver for it. We couldn't, of course, do that at our comprehensive high schools. We'd have way more than just two even. But one of the reasons that we did have we did assign an SRD was for our DAEP program there, the discipline program there, and which has I'll say some unique challenges for our students over there. And we also know that that's one of the first places that if we do need to pull someone to back up another campus, that we will pull, of course, the sergeant first. We'll go over, but if it folds into the second person, we usually pick that person too. After some coordination with our principal on that campus. So it's rare, but we definitely we're very aware of that. And ideally, I'd love to pick up a couple of more SRDs over the years, but and maybe we can consider that going forward. But we're not quite there yet, but maybe soon.
Real quickly, because I had a lot of the similar thoughts. One is I'm also like to I'm glad we're able to recognize you out here and your team out here, because when we do the audit review in closed session, I mean, it just excellent results and all the work that goes in to make that happen. So thanks for that. I also love and appreciate you recognizing that balance between, keeping our campuses warm and welcoming, but also keeping them safe. It's one of the most important things we have to do, and I do think we find a great balance with that. And then my last comment was, I just felt like I think a lot of families could have used some of those yellow binders during the during the storm.
I'm making one tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for having all our schools prepared and safe. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We're glad you're on that wall.
Thank you.
No other question? Thank you so much, Mr. Hall. Always a pleasure. Are you going to stay up here? Because we've got some...
He's there for a little while.
Mr. Nugent, I think this may be a record for me this round. I think I've got 4 in a row here.
Get comfortable. Get comfortable. That's going to take us to K2. Consideration, discussion, and possible action related to naming VLK Architects as the architect of for the purpose of 2021 bond planning and any resulting projects. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. Mr. Hall is going to share with us the request for qualification process that the district went through to interview and select and ultimately recommend VLK Architects tonight for assistance in the bond planning process and the possibility of any resulting projects. So, Mr. Hall with additional details.
Thank you, Mr. Martindale, Mr. Nugent, members of the board. As we have been considering our potential bond package planning this coming up year, a lot of discussion about the possibility of a 2021 bond package. CSISD needed an architectural firm to assist us with our planning process that we're about to jump into. So to that end, a request for qualifications for architectural services was circularized to the public, requesting interested firms to submit their qualifications to the school district. And we ended up receiving 12 really high quality packages from different firms out there, which is I think up from about 7 or 8 maybe the last time we did it. So we got some hungry architects ready to do some work, and they're wanting to work for us. The submitted qualifications were evaluated by a committee consisting of the Chief Financial Officer, the Director of Business, the Director of Instruction and Leadership Development, the Principal of Oakwood Intermediate School, the Executive Director of Facilities, and the Assistant Director of Facilities. The original 12 firms were then scored by the committee according to a pre-established rubric, which, by the way, is included in the little package there. You can kind of see the weights by percentages of how everything was weighed out for the scoring. And ultimately, the 3 firms who were invited back for interviews on Monday, March 1st, 2021 were VLK Architects, PBK Architects, and Huckabee Architects. For the interviews, Mr. Martindale was able to join the committee. So with that addition, we interviewed those 3 firms on March 1st, 2021, and the committee recommended VLK Architects as the official architectural firm for College Station ISD's upcoming bond planning process. The firm of VLK Architects has a long history of providing excellent service to the district in the design of new schools, as well as the design of many deferred maintenance and renovation projects across the district. The selection committee concluded that VLK Architects would be the appropriate firm to serve as a resource to the bond planning committee and to provide architectural services associated with any construction projects that may result from that planning process. The final recommendation matrix with signatures of the committee members is also attached if y'all wanted to flip over and take a quick peek at that. So it is recommended that the Board of Trustees of College Station Independent School District authorize the superintendent or his designee to negotiate and execute a contract with VLK Architects to serve as a resource to the bond planning committee and to provide architectural services associated with facilities included in a bond program that evolves from the work of that committee. With that, I'll turn it over for any questions and comments you may have.
Do we have any?
Could you just name a few of the specific projects that VLK has done for us over the last decade even?
Okay, just from a renovation standpoint, gosh, it goes all the way back with me to they were working with us all the way back in 2009. I'll say over at Consol High School, we did a complete renovation of the Kate wing over there. And helping us rework our ag shops and convert some rooms for spaces over there. They've helped us campus after campus. For instance, Oakwood, we did work over there, converted some rooms into some flexible spaces. Cypress Grove Intermediate School did the same thing. Did some significant renovations projects over the last couple of summers at A&M Consolidated Middle School as well as College Station Middle School. So, gosh, I'm trying to think. There are just a handful of campuses they don't have their fingerprints all over. South Knoll is another one that took us a couple of summers to get that one up to speed. On a side note, they've been doing our facilities assessment reports, gosh, probably back 20 years or so. So they know every square foot of our buildings intimately. When you can talk about that quirky little room in the back hallway of some school, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly that's the one with this or that." It's like, exactly. So, so they're very, very familiar with our campuses.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. And it sounds like particularly a lot of our renovations and not necessarily the new facilities, though.
They have done loads of new facilities as well. They designed Wellborn Middle School, Pecan Trail Intermediate School, River Bend Elementary School. I'm going back in time in my mind here. College View High School. Really, all of them except for we had another architectural firm design College Station High School back in the day. And we had another architectural firm design our transportation center. That was, that was back in about 2010. All other new buildings they've all been VOK, new designs. So they do the new stuff. They also do the old dirty stuff too. So.
Sounds like they have done them all for us. Right. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nugent, I move to accept the recommendation as presented.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, with a motion and a second, all in favor to name VLK Architects, the architect for the purpose of 2021 bond planning projects, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. Let's move to K3. Consider approval of a contract to Musco Lighting for by-board contract 592-19 for the purchase and installation of lighting improvements at AMCHS and CSHS football/soccer stadiums in the amount of $534,500, utilizing 2015 bond funds. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. Currently at both our comprehensive high school stadiums, our lighting systems are performing, in essence, really at half capacity as recommended by UIL. So this particular project would address that and replace the lighting systems at both of those stadiums. With more details, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Martindale. Mr. Nugent, members of the board. I always like to start from the beginning here. Back in November of 2015, College Station ISD voters passed a bond issue for $135.9 million for new construction and renovation to district facilities. Since that time, all identified projects within the 2015 bond have been accomplished. And we have been able to complete or accomplish additional projects with the savings left from that original bond money. So we've been in the bonus round for a little while for picking up additional projects. We're kind of tailing down on the end of them with these last few big projects. But one project that has been identified as a significant need is the replacement of the sports lighting at the competition fields, basically our stadiums, our football, soccer stadiums at A&M Consolidated High School and at College Station High School. A budget of $550,000 was determined for this project based on an old proposal that we had from Hellas Lighting that had expired. It was over a year old, but we knew that to be a good number. We felt like it was a good number. And both of our existing competition fields, as Mr. Martindale stated, currently measure about 26-foot candles. That's for you science folks. That's a measure of illumination. So we were at 26-foot candles basically for both of them, or roughly half of the UIL recommended level of 50-foot candles. A couple of different explanations we can get into, but just briefly. The fixtures at Tiger Field are just really, really old, and they've faded over the years down to 26-foot candles. Theirs is about 25-foot candles, actually. We have a very different issue over at College Station High School. Of course, it's not as old. We put some light fixtures in for our stadium over there that were we thought were good light fixtures, had all the warranties on them and everything, and come to find out they were not as high quality as we thought they were. We had the manufacturer replace several of them, some of them twice, to the point where I guess nationwide, that firm totally went bankrupt for quality issues. So it's hard to get any more lights out of them if they're not solvent anymore. So we're facing a little bit different situation, but similar to over at College Station High School. So in December, the Board of Trustees approved a design proposal from VLK Architects to design this small but technically challenging project, which required a thorough review of existing electrical infrastructure at 2 separate locations and a determination of what components, such as light poles, circuit breakers, and wiring, could be reused, and what components, in addition to the actual light fixtures, needed to be replaced. What I think I did probably a poor job of last time when I was pitching past y'all to pay VLK Architects for this design was the fact that our electrical engineer was going to be so involved with this, and the fact that this is not like a normal architectural design, much more technical with the electrical nature of this. So with some help from our electrical engineer at Solis O'Brien Engineering, the design was complete by mid-February, and the drawings were sent out as College Station ISD solicited proposals from 3 separate buy-board vendors. Only one proposal was received, and this was from Musco Sports Lighting, and the other vendors, including the original Hellas Lighting that we based our proposal on, decided to no bid us on this project. So we were really just down to one, which, by the way, they are a buy-board vendor, and so legally speaking, that's fine for us to process in this manner, especially since we solicited others. This Musco Sports Lighting buy-board contract proposal of $534,500 includes replacement of the existing light fixtures at A&M Consolidated High School and College Station High School competition fields with much more energy-efficient light-emitting diode, or LED, light fixtures for an illumination level of 50-foot candles, which is about twice what we have right now. College Station ISD considered upgrading the illumination level even further, up to 75-foot candles. We did get a price from Musco to do that, but the proposal cost for that was $693,000, or $143,000 over budget. So we decided to stick with the 50-foot candles at that time. The Musco Sports Lighting proposal includes $269,500 for College Station High School and $265,000 for A&M Consolidated High School competition fields, for the total cost of $534,500. $534,500. So I wanted to give you all a little quick breakdown on that as well. And of course, their proposal is attached to this agenda item. This proposal meets or exceeds all design specifications created by VLK Architects and Solis O'Brien Engineering. And it also includes a warranty for materials and on-site labor for 10 years, which, by the way, does include the old existing light poles. Musco did come out, take a look at those, and they're going to be providing a warranty for old existing light poles, which is great. That's one of the real pluses to using them. And it utilizes a local subcontractor. Most of y'all have heard of Britt Rice Electric. And they're going to be the ones to do the actual installation work. So we know them very well and are very comfortable with the quality of work that they provide as well. So with all that said, it's recommended that the College Station Independent School District Board of Trustees approve a contract award to Musco Lighting under buy-board contract 592-19 for the purchase and installation of lighting improvements at A&M Consolidated High School and College Station High School competition fields in the amount of $534,500, utilizing 2015 bond funds. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Well, we had questions for him last time. I think you answered them all last time. Do we have a motion?
Seems pretty simple. I motion that we consider approval of the contract award to Musco Lighting as presented.
Second.
All right, with our motion and a second, all in favor of Mr. Horak's motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion will pass 6-0. Takes us to K4, consider approval of a contract award, of a contract award to Hellas Construction under Buy Board Contract 560-18 for the purchase and installation of artificial turf at AMCHS and CSHS football soccer competition fields in the amount of $1,197,800, utilizing 2015 bond funds. Mr. Martindale.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Martindale, Mr. Nugent, members of the board. Well, this is the last one of the night. As my dad would say, this is the one we've been looking for, the last one. So in the same spirit of picking up additional projects that I spoke to with the Musco Lighting, one project that has been identified as a significant need is the replacement of the artificial turf at both of our high school competition fields. The existing field turf, and field turf is a term for one of the vendors, one of the systems that's used. The existing field turf field at Tiger Field is 7 years old, and the existing Hellas field, which is what we're looking at considering a Hellas product again tonight, at Cougar Field is 9 years old. Of course, it's original to the new construction of it, and they are both showing some wear and tear. Our GMAX testing, which is a measure of cushioning and relative safety for artificial turf, you might hear that term again, GMAX, has indicated an increasing hardness over the last few years for both fields. And so for artificial turf, getting harder means more injuries, more elbow injuries, broken bones, that sort of thing. So you want them soft and playable to the extent you can. And so of course when they're brand new, they're soft and great, but over the years, some of them age more quickly and become harder more quickly. So as a result of this concern, safety is a pressing issue for this project as well. A budget of $1,240,000 was determined for this project based on discussions not only with the coaching staff and the level of quality desired for these replacement fields, but also talking with our architectural firm and our sports consultants there, and also with our own maintenance staff about how much difficulty one field was to maintain as opposed to the other. So we established a budget number of $620,000 per field. That's what adds up to the $1,240,000 for our original budget. One of the things that did come out of some of our discussions with our coaches is we wanted a field that would hold its softness for as many years as possible. And also one that caught me off guard, I'd never processed one of these quite so much, was reduce the radiant heat for safety. One of the new things in artificial turf over the last, I'll say 4 or 5 years, something like that, has been a ballast system that allows it to not be quite as hot as some. So if you look at these old fields and they've got, the black rubber BBs, little ballast in there, back even when we put the last couple of fields in, tremendously hot when you get on that field. It could be a 95-degree day. You get out there on that field and it's you probably got an extra 20 or 25 degrees, maybe more. So with that said, College Station ISD worked with VOK Architects to develop a design for this work, which was completed in mid-February, and the drawings were sent out as College Station ISD solicited proposals from 4 buy-board vendors. We wanted to make sure what was out there, that we were going through a very thorough process and made a good selection on this. Proposals from all 4 vendors were received, and an analysis of the proposals was processed. As requested, VOK Architects reviewed the technical aspects and corresponding costs for each proposal and provided a written recommendation for the best value for the district. Independently, College Station ISD Athletics and College Station ISD Facilities also reviewed the proposals to determine the best value for district, in our opinion. The unanimous recommendation from these separate and independent processes was Hellas. The primary factors behind this consensus recommendation are that the Hellas product is considered a more durable, safe, color-fast, physically cooler, and overall higher quality product than the other systems. Hellas was determined to be the best value for the district based upon all measurable criteria and all collective experience with customer service and maintenance with all 4 of these vendors. In particular, the Hellas Ecotherm ballast system, which is capable of lowering playing surface temperatures by several degrees, was considered a critically important component, especially after checking references regarding this product, talking to our coaches who have played games on these fields that have the Ecotherm. They said it's just makes an incredible difference. In addition to this, the Hellas E-Layer shock pad is also widely considered to be the safest in the industry, which that's what's allowed us to keep that playing field soft for so long out at College Station High School. This Hellas buy-board contract proposal includes removal of the existing artificial turf at both competition fields and replacement of it with Hellas Matrix Helix 46 turf. That's a trade name of their premium product, which includes an E-Layer shock pad and an Ecotherm ballast system for not only holding the turf in place, but also minimizing the radiant heat on the playing surface. This is the highest quality system available and has excellent safety ratings for maintaining its cushioning for many, many years. It also includes an 8-year warranty, and of course all existing logos would be replicated as well. Their proposal meets or exceeds all design specifications created by VLK Architects and is below the original budget by $42,200. VLK's technical comparison, proposal evaluation, and recommendations are all attached to this package. We went ahead and included all of the other vendors' proposals as well, so that if you wanted to flip through that and get a feel for the cost and specifications that they provided, we've got all of the backup documentation in there as well. So it is recommended that the College Station Independent School District Board of Trustees approve the purchase of new artificial turf for A&M Consolidated High School and College Station High School competition fields from Hellas via buy-board contract number 560-18 for a total of $1,197,800 utilizing 2015 bond funds. And I would just like to make one note before I open it up for questions, and that is in this particular situation, maybe more than any I've ever taken to the school board in the 14 years I've been here, the price tag on this particular product may look high, but what we took into very careful consideration, as well as VLK and their technical experts, is that 9 to 10 years of nearly maintenance-free work with very high quality turf and very high quality safety. That's always such an important factor, that this is really an excellent value for the school district. So with that said, I'd like to open it up for questions and comments.
It is a lot of money. It's a whole lot of money. We're spending a lot of money potentially this evening on our sports facilities out there. And I also kind of look at it to try to figure out how it looks per year. Sure. To see it. And so I was trying to understand how long they would last. So you're saying they're saying an 8-year warranty, but hopefully 9 to 10 year life?
Exactly. We're at 9 years right now on a similar product, the Hellas product at College Station High School. So, it's fared very well, I'd say.
And then I was trying to understand, even just on the history on the Tiger Field one, on the note, it said that the one is 7 years old, different product, right? But then it was also replaced after 6 years due to.
I'm glad you mentioned it. Would you
yes,
like
go
me
ahead.
to
Yeah, I was trying to clarify if we got 13 years out of what we paid for, or only the 7.
We did kind of. When that was one of the first projects I processed when I got over here in 2007. So it was in the summer of 2008 We scraped off all of the natural grass on Tiger Field, and we put in field turf over there. And so that was, about 2008, we put that in, just in time for the fall of 2008. And we had an 8-year warranty for that. Excuse me. And about 6 years into that warranty time period, the field turf product began to disintegrate terribly. And the fibers were disintegrating. We did have a full warranty on it. And I'll just say it took some convincing. I'll be nice and say it took some convincing, but they did replace the turf completely at no cost to the school district. And when they finally got that accomplished, that was our one warranty full replacement at that time. So now we're 7 years into that replacement time.
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing is, interestingly enough, that in 7 years, our GMAX testing shows that field turf field is actually harder in 7 years, being all fresh and new, than the Hellas field is at 9 years old, which kind of made us take notice of that too. But that's the odd year thing with the field turf. So we have gotten 13 years out of our initial investment, but it's taken us two different fields to get there. And it's, I don't know if y'all saw some photos maybe in submittal, it's already getting pretty worn after 7 years. So.
Well, and just to find, I mean, I appreciate your comments on, I did some research on it too. Obviously, they're low maintenance fields, and that is something that definitely is a factor in the overall cost of the fields. And it also is a safety, it really is a real safety issue. I mean, the improvements in the fields and the technology does help our athletes as well. So
truly,
still a lot of money.
So now I learned a new term, that ecotherm. I'm going to drive my soccer family crazy using that one. Hey, does this field have ecotherm? Because they do get hot, like crazy, crazy hot. My kids have extra inserts in their soccer shoes whenever we play on turf fields. So the question, so I like that, but the question that I have is, and maybe it's not a question, maybe you don't want to answer it, but I like the idea of doing this for both of our comprehensive high schools and both of our athletic fields at the same time so that they're equal. But do we have any concern about being on a schedule now where we potentially need to replace all of this at the same time for both high schools again in the future? I mean, do we have any concerns about that?
Well, I would say personally, I don't have a concern about that. Knowing that we've got 9 to 10 years, in my opinion, to answer your question, I'll just kind of shoot from the hip here and make Mr. Martindale nervous. But I would say 10 years, 9 to 10 years out, we've got some time to look at future bond packages if we want to pick up an athletic piece in a referendum of some sort. 8 or 9 years out after we do this, we've got plenty of time to consider all of our options at that point and come up with a really good solution at that point. In the meantime, we've bought ourselves about a decade of a pretty solid field and some time to think about that. So that's how I would answer it. But
So you didn't make me that nervous, John. That's okay. A couple of pieces of it. This is a significant amount of money, obviously. We're utilizing 2015 bond funds. So those are funds that are remaining from projects that have been completed. So we're fortunate to have these funds available to us. This is not something that we can necessarily kick the can down the road. We can, but we're going to be having the same conversation next year, and it'll be 1 year where they're in even worse shape. Having them at the same time, that doesn't bother me, Geraldine. I almost kind of prefer addressing the high schools at the same time. We would this would not be on the agenda for consideration if it wasn't a need.
Right.
So, and again, I get it and I understand, but it's something we need to address. because it's not going away. So we're positioned financially again with bond funds from 15. So from that standpoint, we're fortunate we have those funds available to us to do this. If you push this to a future referendum, it's going to have to go on a separate referendum, and those don't see a lot of success. And then we're going to have to try to figure out how to pay for this out of our general operating fund. And $1 million out of general operating fund it will be a task. So there you go. I hope I didn't make you nervous, Mr. Hall.
No, sir.
Okay.
You're doing all the good.
Well, it seems to be the right thing to be doing right now.
Do we have any other questions?
Well, I would look at it as, because as you said, it's a safety issue. And with that being safety issue, it's a liability issue as well. So $1 million today could be a whole lot less than potential liability lawsuit. It's one way to look at it. Another way I would think about it is if we were to replace it with natural sod, we'd have to water it, irrigate it, fertilize it, cut it. You have a staff, you have equipment. So, I mean, it's extremely expensive, but as you said, I think it's needed. So with that, Mr. Nugent, I move that we accept the recommendation as presented.
I will second.
All right, with a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion will pass 6-0. Mr. Hall, thank you so much.
You can sit down.
What a
now, Mr. Hall.
night. What a night for you. All right, that is going to take us to L1 executive session. The board will meet in executive session to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, including superintendent of schools. The executive session deliberations will be held pursuant to the Personnel Matters Closed Meeting exception to the Texas Open Meetings Act as set forth in Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. We shall return. It is 10:01 and we are adjourned.